Hi, everyone. I'm John with Cold Plunge Connection. Welcome to our conversation about cold exposure, psychedelics, and integration, and how these practices can help you build resilience, clarity, and a deeper connection to yourself. Now, I know the word psychedelics can bring up a lot. For some, it's curiosity. For others, it's hesitation or even skepticism. Wherever you land, you're in exactly the right place because what you're going to learn in this conversation can apply broadly to your life. So, today, I'm very excited to talk with Kole Whitty, the co founder of the Condor Approach, and Kristin Weitzel, founder of Sherpa Breath Cold. These are two of the most experienced and thoughtful leaders that I know of when it comes to bridging science, personal transformation, and practical tools that you could use every day. So, whether you're a coach or facilitator, or an entrepreneur, or a parent, or a cold water enthusiast, or simply someone who is passionate about personal growth, this discussion has something valuable for you. We're going to explore how tools like breathwork, cold water immersion, and intentional integration can create meaningful, lasting change, regardless of what path you're on. If this conversation inspires you and you'd like to learn more, definitely check out their website, condorapproach.com. And if you're a healer, a facilitator, a coach, or simply someone who wants to bring these tools or other tools that you're already using more deeply into your life, I'd love to invite you to join me at the last live Condor Approach workshop that's happening this September. You'll find all the details and a special discount code, ICE COLD, in the video description below. Thanks for joining us, and let's dive in. Kole is
Totally.
one of the co-founders of the Condor Approach, along with Tom Whitty, and they've got an amazing long story. I really encourage you to check them out. But they're kind of known for like integration and community, and this is a big piece that seems to be missing in a lot of spaces. So, Kristin, welcome. Your timing is perfect.
Hi. I'm a little
Hey,
stuck in traffic. I was like racing to get home, but it's like bumper to bumper. You know, the 20 minute
I
traffic in Austin. But I'm here. I'm
Yep.
here for
Nope.
it.
I totally hear it. So awesome. So we're excited you're here. Your timing is perfect. And I'll introduce Kristin. Kristin Weitzel is the founder of the Sherpa Breath Cold method. And so Kristin has been coaching people in breath and cold water immersion and peak performance. Like, how do you optimize performance? And she's got some really, I mean, not just like everybody needs help with this, but Kristin also has some very high end client. So she really knows her stuff, and she's been doing this for a long time, and she's put thousands of people through cold water. So I'm really super excited to have this conversation about how cold water and psychedelics and integration, how does this all fit together? So
Go.
so why don't we just jump in?
Yeah, yeah. I first would just say that, yeah, it's been now like 4 or 5 years of me navigating sort of the psychedelic space, just learning and understanding how to work within it. Less about dosing and medicine and more about how I can work with breath, with grounding, with getting people out of anticipatory anxiety or fear, and really working through the integration bubble, as well as, working in the landscape of like weekend long containers where there might be ayahuasca or psilocybin or wachuma, and just bringing breath and cold to those landscapes. And then more recently, I've been working with MDMA specifically in sort of like the underground scene where people have their medicine, and I work with them through a process of 6 or 7 hour container, doing IFS parts work and coaching around that. So I've been in this periphery space now for longer than it even really feels like in psychedelics, because it's an ever expanding landscape. And a big part of the journey for me was really, navigating through like working in the Condor Approach training, and then understanding integration as a general standstill or standalone for people from anything, right? Integrating from breath work, integrating post ice bath, integrating post psychedelics and other experiences, including traumas that have come up for people. Because, if you look at the IFS parts work specifically, or if we all think about this in the larger landscape, it's really not about getting rid of the part that we don't like as much as it's recognizing it, showing it, who you are, reparenting yourself, whatever the case may be, and integrating that part into you, whether that's going to become a small part or a big part of you, but it's just that it's not necessarily driving the bus.
and
And so,
IFS, just for a quick note for people who don't
yeah,
know, IFS, internal family systems, is that correct?
yeah,
You
IFS
want
is
to,
internal family systems, correct. And so I am not I don't have letters behind my name, but it is a clinical therapy that people use. And IFS has been around for years and years. That really is working with people to work somatically, mindset around, understand the parts that they all bring to the table based on the experiences we've had in life and the reflections of those experiences on our body and our mind and our thoughts. So, so really like integration has become this tenfold landscape of so many ways that we can play it. And breath and cold are very big tools that I use within the mix as well to, yeah, navigate and get people to understand themselves better.
Awesome. Yeah, Kristin, thanks for that. So,
Yeah.
Kole, is there anything that you would like to say, just either about yourself and you guys haven't, just for anybody else who's watching this, I really encourage you to go find out about Kole's story and Ta's story. There's a really deep background. I mean, we could spend the entire time learning about Kole's history and what got her here, and it's quite a journey. It's like
It
a
is.
roller coaster, a ride
Todd
to
calls
to.
me Cole Gump because he's like, you just ran out of the house at 17. And then it's like, you met the president and you're with this. And, so there was a lot of chronic conditions
Mm,
in health, which is really what brought me to psychedelics. And my husband, too, Ta, who is an emergency medicine nurse of 35 years, they're almost 35, who was anti substance,
yeah.
anything that wasn't prescribed. So for us to come into the work that we're doing, we both had to have extreme situations that opened us up to considering the therapeutic approach for psychedelics. Many people have exposure in their early 20s for in the party scene or in college or that kind of thing. And, set and setting is something they talk about in psychedelics a lot. The set being your mindset, your body set, and then the setting where you are, the people that you're around. The impact it has on you neurologically matters greatly where you are. So even if you had an experience in college, it's very different now. And so when it comes to the conversation we're having today, Kristin sharing her perspective, I'm sharing my perspective and our experiences. I always invite people to research, and the mainstream research is very limited in what has been studied. Where, for Kristin, for myself, we mentor and have worked with people that have been in this 40 plus years who come from lineages of this work. And so it's important to also discern when you're getting your information, not to stay in echo chambers. Some people will say you can't work with certain psychedelics and medications, like SSRIs, which is actually not true. And there's now medical proof in Oregon. Dr. Erica Zelfand, you can go on that roller coaster and go learn. But there's so much that's ever changing that to really diversify your tools. And that's why I love everything that Kristin's doing, because her and I have like changed hands of information. Ta and I had a background of personal training. So meeting with Kristin, we saw the crossover where whether it was someone was going to do a mud run or a Joe Dispenza retreat or an ayahuasca retreat, what do you do in preparation and in integration to decrease harm? Someone could go run a marathon tomorrow. It's possible, but the possibility of them returning with no injury is not so high. And it's kind of the same with some of these psychedelic experiences, especially the bigger ones. You can go in completely unprepared and you will probably come out with things that you can figure out. But when you have time, intention, attention, support, whether through groups, through mentorship, through coaching, it is a completely different experience. It's like going to a group fitness class versus getting a trainer that is getting you ready for very specific needs or very specific desires.
Right. So on the front end, we've got the preparation side, then you've got the event, and then there's what happens afterwards. And I
Exactly.
think I mentioned we were talking before we started the recording about, I've got a very long background in personal development work, a lot of different things, landmark education, Tony Robbins, all this sort of thing. And there was never much follow-up. It was like, maybe I was excited for a month, or maybe it was the next day, you get back into the traffic and it's like, where'd all that stuff go that I just had an amazing insights or breakthroughs on? And it seems like it just
Mm-hmm.
got dropped. So yeah, I'm really excited about the integration piece, and I'm also really excited to hear how it was. It was actually surprising for me to see, like, oh, you're integrating cold water immersion as part of your trainings and what you're doing, and so I'd be curious to hear
Yeah,
more about that as well.
part of that came actually when Kristin came into our field, and also Sean Wells and Kayla Osterhoff and some of my favorite, we'll say biohackers, wellness optimization people. I was, I, no, thank you. I was one of those people that was like, absolutely not, never. I moved to Texas because I like to be just shy of on fire of heat. So cold water, I would have said then I hated. I left snow, I left cold, and it was Kristin was the first person I ever witnessed and worked with to see what it was like to be coached through it and to see what it can evoke in a personal development from understanding the difference between fighting the cold, meeting the cold, disassociating from your body, and someone to actually explain like what just happened. Maybe not when you're in the cold, but after, or someone to talk you and bring it back because you never had someone pause to point out to you what dissociation felt like in your body. So you didn't know because you weren't there.
Right. Yeah, Kristen, I would love for you to actually speak about that. Like, what is something that, for the people that are watching and listening to this, that they could take away that would say, hey, how do you really distinguish between disassociation and actually being present in the cold? Just because what I get to hear in my community, my Facebook community with all thousands of people, I am primarily focused on helping people on the technical DIY stuff. But as you know, like along with that, people start talking about their experiences in the cold. And there's a huge, wide range of things that happen. Some people get in and they're like all Zen meditation. Some people are blaring rock and roll. Some people are thrashing around. I've seen every possible way that people can get into cold water. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of them. And so I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are around that. And you're muted. Hey, Kristen, yeah, can you, there we go.
I think it's a beautiful exploration when people are getting in cold because everyone is so bio-individual and it's so specific to that person and mostly to that person's somatic body, their nervous system. Number one, how it is functioning in the present or very close time frame to the time they're getting in the cold, meaning how much allostatic load, how much overarching stress do they have from bells and whistles and bosses and kids and traffic and whatever else, things that are coming up in their life currently. Or it's somebody who's carrying something that's long-term, like we could talk about it like a water trauma or something that would be more obvious that they might have a scared or fearful response when they get in the cold. So just when we look at a lot of my training comes from putting lots and lots of bodies, like over 5,000 people one-on-one at this point, going through a trauma and somatics course from our dear friend, Will Reason, who's a great mentor, colleague of mine, and really starting to understand what people look like and how their eyes look and skin tone shifts and muscular response and things like that to be able to get to really understand and be able to potentially call out what disassociation looks like for sure. I think that if I was going to say that there's a few cues, it's really hard to discern between someone who's getting in and can look very zen and with like a beautiful smile on their face and their eyes are kind of wide open and they might look like they're fine, and that distinction between that and disassociation. So if I have a newer plunger and they get in and they sort of look like this is easy and happy and they're not really fully connected, and it's almost like they're looking through you, then I might be like, oh, this is someone who could disassociate in stress, which, let me be clear, is not a bad thing. That is a mechanism of action that their body has chosen over the course of a lifetime to protect them. It has been part of their superpower. Maybe that is a person who is good at being more avoidant of things because they need that, construct in order to survive. And then we begin to unpack that a bit, maybe when they get out of the tub, if they're open to that conversation. I always ask, can I speak freely? And if someone's like, no, then that's their prerogative. But really just watching nervous system tones in the tub and seeing the beauty that is the range of colors of people's nervous system response. And then nobody just has one nervous system response in the cold, as you know, people have multiple. So it's like this arc of how we get to see what I always say is the most important first 45 seconds or so to get to this turnover where I know both of you have seen this already, where people are like, oh my goodness, I'm so nervous. They have the gasp reflex. They get in, there's like a little bit of a shock response. And then within 45 seconds to a minute, they begin to settle, right? If they're getting up to their neck, if they're calming their breath. And then it's a whole different story. I've had people say, I'm going to do 15 seconds. And after the first minute, they're like, can we do 3 minutes? Can we do 5 minutes? So there's that big cataclysmic shift that's so epic. And many of the people who are in this group will know about it, but it's just where you start to say, wow, I can do hard things. Wow, I have amazing ability, capacity, confidence. And those things start to rise, which is why coaching around the Condor and Cold container and coaching and working with you, John, has been so pivotal, because if people get out in the first 30 seconds, that first minute or before that happens, before they use the steel of the cold to soften, which in my framework and my, opinion is the newer people that come to cold, understanding how to be soft in the midst of stress is the game, right? And then we can play with all the crazy shit later where we go in and out and head dunk and all of that. But just like working within the group of, the Condor crew and being able to see the rise of all the different nervous system shifts, and then people getting out and having almost different parts of their persona and the understanding of what they bring to the world. You're muted, John.
We all got to watch out for each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Kristin. Yeah, I'm finding all of this to be extremely fascinating just because, we get so accustomed to seeing like some big expert or influencer say that here's the way to do things. And what I love, I think you were the one that actually introduced me to the term about bioindividuality in one of our very early conversations about women being different in terms of how they needed to approach cold. And so I love that fact that it's both the hard piece and the piece that we need to learn to tune in and become self-aware to what we're going through, and that we're not going to all have this same cookie cutter approach. So I appreciate that. So Cole, now how did you guys start integrating or bringing in the cold water exposure as part of a preparation towards a psychedelic journey?
So I will preface, I'm sharing experience. I'm not making any recommendations. I do
Okay.
not condone the illegal or illicit use of any substances,
Okay.
period.
Yeah.
But what I found that was for myself, one, not during an experience. And so I did find that that can just be too many things happening at one time, right? And not that there wasn't ever times where that was very appropriate and someone that was very experienced in ice and they knew themselves and I knew them. And so they were in a self-trust place. But we would usually find more in a San Pedro or Wachuma experience where it's later in the day. It's a much milder experience because it's almost, I like to explain it like when you see those chariot of horses from like old Roman times and the guys standing on two horses. When you're in psychedelic experiences more towards the end or in more subtle spaces, one foot is in that spiritual consciousness, realm of possibility, and the other can stay in your body. So it's a beautiful place to titrate between who am I, who do I want to be, and kind of like calling them into the moment and into the cold with you. If you've been wanting to be powerful, strong, or you've been hesitating in life, then we can kind of set the scene for you to get into the cold with determination, with inner knowing, and kind of set that in such a way that you're neuroplastic still, even though you're not in the peak of the experience. For days to follow, you are still in a neuroplastic state. So, us having an experience in such a neuroplastic state is mimicking repetition and impact at the same time. So, that is what really helps us create habits. So, now we've got this new neural network habit that usually takes years and tons of practice that remembers that moment when we said, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to step into things that I know I want to do without hesitating. So we actually set that scene with the cold for them to get in and sit in it and know there's going to be a little bit of discomfort and they're going to breathe. And maybe they say mantras for themselves. I'm powerful. I got this. It's time. And that moment, because it's like more of your brain is lit up, it deepens that impact exponentially more. Landmark events, Tony Robbins events, they create peak experiences to do a similar thing. The difference with going with a psychedelic or an entheogenic experience is it's accessing some deeper parts of yourself that may be driving the dysfunctions and actually helping to resolve some of those parts and pieces. So, like Kristin was saying, especially when you have a guided experience with someone that knows how to be with all of your parts. So, if that 5-year-old comes in, it's not always the big T traumas that comes through. It's that when you were 6, your best friend pushed you off the swing and then you learn to not trust people close to you because they could hurt you. And even though you love them, so it creates what we call like a multi-construct strain. I love people, but people close to me equals pain or danger. Or parents got divorced. And even once you have a knowing of that, does not mean you know what to do with it. And so integration is the action as a result of the thought or realization. How do we now take that and put that in? The same happens with ice. The same happens with cold exposure. Someone realizes they almost drowned when they were 9 or something happened. But by it happening again, when you have a skilled coach or guide, they can work with the part to get it to resolve. Doesn't mean go away, doesn't mean forget it in psychedelics or any other peak experience, but it's that it smooths the edges it grounds it, and it gives us the opportunity now for now what? What does this mean for our life? What does that mean moving forward? So cold exposure in psychedelic experiences where it started, but we started bringing it to our trainings because then we could teach doctors, therapists, medicine carriers how to observe someone's nervous system in a peak experience without having in the half-life of a psychedelic experience that's hours long, and without having to get people altered in an educational space. So it kind of tested it, loved it, moved it over. We've had Kristin come a bunch of times and coach people there, and they have very profound experiences. And the key is then they have coaches and people on site to help them process what just came up for them in the cold with some aftercare, with whatever they kind of need. You're muted.
Yeah, I was mentioning TBI earlier. So memory short term is one of those funny symptoms. So yeah, I never would have connected like cold water immersion, like the path of being in that experience to a longer psychedelic experience. It's a very fascinating parallel. And
it can also, one thing I want to add to that, it's also an incredible preparatory tool. Because when you learn how to be in the discomfort of a moment and you can return to the breath, you're going to take that into a psychedelic experience that, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a lot of things, right? So in the cold, it's an overwhelming, a lot of things. And so you can use that or work with that as a tool in preparation so that in a psychedelic experience, if a lot of feelings come or a lot of sensations, you are teaching your body how to be in it, how to breathe in it, and how to move through it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So yeah, it's really interesting to me to think about like how you guys, what your journey was in terms of like, not only just bringing in the cold, but this whole process of integration. Like I know you all both have your own histories, which I definitely, I mean, all of you have your own histories, you and Ta and Kristin. But I'd be curious to find out like, how did this piece about the integration become part of it, and how did you just discover or realize that this was the piece that was, or a huge piece that was significantly lacking?
I think, like most people, we created something that we needed. And then when we created that for ourselves, other people saw it and they said, well, how are you getting the results that you're getting? We're like, oh, well, we journal every day and we do this and we do check-ins together. And I call in friends for support. And we didn't know that's what integration was. When you go into many of these psychedelic spaces, they say the word, but people don't know what that means. So they think it's maybe the morning after we have a check-in, and that's integration. We're going to have an integration circle. But what really started to happen is people came to me and talked, because I was reversing medical conditions that are irreversible, that are life sentences: endometriosis, hypothyroidism, I mean, we know about borderline type 2. We can work with diet and exercise. But even after changing my diet and lifestyle, I lost 50 pounds and like 60% of the symptoms. But it was the other 40% that was from trauma, self-loathing, shame. And so in integration happened because I was trying to figure out my medical issues. And so why was I getting migraines on certain days and not other days? Why could I have a great day and then be in bed in pain? And so I had to start tracking not just what I was eating, because I did that. I had to track the people I was around, the job I was at. I'm like, interesting that my migraines happen Sunday nights before I'm supposed to return to the job that I hate, that I'm watching everyone die at, with their gout and their MS and all their health problems. And so integration became this system that we saw over time. It was really the adaptation of things me and Ta created for ourselves, that as more people came and asked us, well, how did you do it? How have you been off medication since 2009? How did you, get resolved and get off Synthroid or other, thyroid things? And it wasn't just diet and lifestyle, though those are very, very important. But the things that were driving the diet and lifestyle choices were the same things driving the shame and the self-hate and those things. So resolving one without getting to the root wasn't really going to work. And so I started creating a book I just called my body book, where every day, what I ate, how I slept, who I was around, what I interacted with, did I laugh? And I just started to track anything I could think of, because on the good days, what were the commonalities? On the rough days, what were the commonalities? And so through this process of elimination, I started to develop my own system for tracking progress. Because as someone who had been in pain for so long, like most of my adult life. I've had 3 traumatic brain injuries, a coma, lots of broken bones, lots of things. So the nuance was like really critical, which means I had to track every single day. And then that became the Condor Approach book. And then that became a Condor Approach process because as people asked us more questions, we created generalized tools. And that's why that's all valuable. But when you need the more bioavailable approach, the more bio-individual approach, I mean, and bioavailable, that like Kristin will do, it's because you feel like you're 85% of the way there. And man, but that just like that freaking 15%, you just cannot figure out what keeps sliding me back. Like it's just like you've got this one tripwire that keeps happening. And so I created it because there was no one else to turn to. I'd been to all the medical professionals. There was no one else to go to try to figure out what was going on. And so I created what I didn't have. And that carried into the psychedelic plant medicine space, but they're kind of irrelevant. We don't learn how to integrate after any hard life experience or positive one. Marriage, living with someone for the first time, having a baby, car accidents, traumas. And so I'll kind of put a bow on it with this. When we have a moment that disintegrates us or some part of us, whether it's an identity change, fired from our job, not a mom, finally a mom, whatever, we have a disintegration. There is some part that fractures. And just like a broken bone, it's going to heal. But if you don't get it healed in a supportive way, it could be disfigured. Even though it's healed, doesn't mean it's going to be optimal or even functional. So we all heal after these adverse and positive events. But how we heal is not always in a way for longevity that's going to work. It worked for then. And so we have these adaptations that worked for the time being to dissociate, to run, to flee. But we may not want to disassociate in a relationship we're trying to deepen in that moment because the overwhelming emotion is more than I can handle in my capacity. So I leave, but that's not what I want. So it's until I started to track that, I couldn't see which parts had healed in a way that was just not functional for me. They weren't bad, wrong, or broken. They served a purpose. But for where I wanted to go now, I needed to get it adjusted. Just like when people realize a bone healed, they're going to have to go get it broken again and put in proper alignment so that they can use that bone for the rest of their life. Otherwise, the pain increases and it causes other issues.
Right. So this seems to be what's really amazing about this. I know you guys on a lot of your information, or people think about, oh, it's integration of psychedelic experiences, but it's really so much more than that. My experience with the cold water immersion is that and I've told people this before, that it's one of the most honest things I've ever done because I can't fake being in cold water. I can fake that I'm meditating or whatever, checking out, disassociating. I've been there, done that. But with the cold water, it's a very different experience. And I've said just even recently, like I'm a better dad, I'm a better human because of just my experience in the cold water. However, I know there's more to do because there's those moments that I'm not. And it's like, what just happened? I was so zen just a few minutes ago, and then I got this little 12-year-old who's coming and like, and she's doing her thing, and all of a sudden I'm getting triggered like crazy. It's like, what's going on? Where'd that cold water experience go that was working so beautifully 2 days ago? So this is really a valuable, important thing that I think that so many of us have been missing with anything, whether it's cold water immersion or psychedelics or personal growth work or meditation or yoga, anything. It's like bringing it into your world afterwards. And especially whether you're an individual or if you're somebody who is working as a coach or a facilitator of these types of programs, this seems to be just an essential like ingredient, a piece of the puzzle that's been missing for so long. So I'm very excited to learn more.
Yeah, I know that Kristin's been leading a lot of retreats. So I would like to hear from you, Kristin, like especially in the retreat space and with groups, how you work with cold and maybe they're having psychedelic experiences like over the weekend. What do you see as far as these in an allyship or how people could work with cold in preparation for their psychedelic experiences?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if I'm leading a retreat, it's really easy for me to put it in wherever I want. But when I'm going to a space where I'm like, I'm not dosing, I'm not medicine womaning, I'm typically bringing the peripheral things, the integration, the breath work, the connection points, the grounding, etc. I'm a little bit at the behest of the person who's running the retreat and how they're willing to put it in. But if I'm talking about like a 2 or 3 day container, we're doing cold outside of the medicine bubble, and we're doing a lot of breath work woven in, and definitely in preparatory. And I'm gonna share my opinion a little, and I think that you might be aligned with this in some way. But I continue to see, and I try to offer as much as I can, the post experience integration that lives beyond the container, because there's just not 2 minutes in the morning integration circle, or times when I'm working with a shaman that's there, and people go around and they're in the morning integration each day, and they're talking about the ice bath the whole time. It's like great. People are always like, "Oh my God, you stole the show," and it's like, no, it's not me or the ice bath stealing the show. It's that people are having a peak experience outside of the medicine as well. So then they're speaking to it, and it's just not enough time for them to say the thing, which is like, I got to meet my higher self. I saw my 12-year-old self. I remembered this thing that happened with my father, etc. So how do we extend the integration without necessarily weaving in more psychedelic plant medicines or molecules? And so then we have that beautiful opportunity to give someone a practice where they can use the tools like the Condor Approach has provided, right? It's body mapping and all the things that we do, and layer in some ritualistic tools like a short breathing practice. Again, it doesn't have to be that people are doing an hour a day, but a short breathing practice, a cold shower, if that's all they have access to, maybe creating a consistent cold plunge practice, because it can bring them back and bring them back and bring them back to the notions and the things they found out about themselves, and give them the opportunity to explore more of themselves, right? It's like every single ceremony, every retreat, whether it is involving plant medicine or not, it's like you get to the doorway, you open the door, you see this beautiful thing of, oh my goodness, there's so much to explore in this house that is me. And then once it's over, there's no key unless you have integration, and integration is the key to get back into the space, to get back into the exploration. So I use all the tools that I can when it comes to breath cold, and sometimes heat if I have availability of like a sauna on site, because no one has a tough time getting in the sauna usually. So it's like starting people where they're at, but also to be able to bolster, the preliminary experience, getting people in collection, in like the collective, to have an oxytocin, literally the chemical response of oxytocin in the body bonds people. And in retreats where I've had in the middle of the weekend where I've only had one opportunity to do cold, you can see, so maybe there'll be a night of service that's happening, and then we do cold and breath in the next day. Then the next night of service happens, and you can really feel the difference in how bonded people are and how orchestrated they are even together, in the way that they're speaking or singing or whatever's going on in the space in the room. So it's a really beautiful opportunity to have, woven these things in all the retreat work that I've done. And especially when I'm leading retreats, I'm like, I just go all out. And I also will say just out loud to this group, to you guys, that I've always had a focus from some of my past life in the world on aftercare and creating experiences that people then brought into their own lives. But really, I would credit the work that I did and the learnings that I had with Sa and Kole for really like hammering home how important integration is. And then my personal experiences with psychedelics in a therapeutic sense, not like recreational when I was younger, but in a therapeutic sense, really understanding that if I don't do the integrative work, I don't get the gold at the end of the rainbow. I just don't. And it becomes something where I had a few little notions, and maybe I made some small lifestyle changes, but I haven't had that tough conversation with my mother, or I haven't given myself the stillness, softness, and silence to be able to say, okay, I need to sit with these feelings and have a somatic understanding of where I'm at. So it really gets us back to our body. And yeah, I think that's like, I just want to shout Sa and Kole out and that whole program, because it just hit a home run for me, and really understanding how to do that in such a solid way.
Yeah, Kristin, thank you for sharing that. So what I'm hearing is like there's an importance of having a structure in place, not only during, but also beforehand, to have the integration pieces afterwards. How important would you say community is for that integration piece, either Kole or Kristin?
I mean, I think we both will have a similar perspective on it. And so I'll share mine and have Kristin share hers. Both are important. Individual work is important and group is important, because especially post-COVID, so many people are still suffering in isolation, even together with people. Because after being separated for so long, we got more digital, more phone, more Zoom. And so it also kind of tainted the authenticity even further. because now we all have a bit of a code switch with Zoom because it became business and, in an even deeper level. And so when people come together, they might want that connection, but their body, after hearing years of people aren't safe, they might breathe on you. Like there was a phantom monster that we couldn't see that for many people, whether or not they ascribed to the belief, heard it over and over again. And our body, our cells hear that. We have a instinctual intelligence to keep us alive. And so then when you're suddenly in a group of people, and let's say you had a big family that you weren't safe in, you were abused, you were hit, your body being around a lot of people could put it into a heightened state. And that's the only way to heal some of those parts is in community, because you can't heal some of those communal wounds alone. And so both are important, but I think that the benefit of starting and doing some of your own work first and really knowing what's yours and what are your activations and how do you ask for support, whether from a facilitator, a guide, or the community before you get there. Because I commonly see people start in communities, but they're still recovering people pleasers or they're full-blown people pleasers. So when they need something, they don't ask for support. They don't tell the facilitator that they needed something. They don't want to be a bother. So they'll kind of like tune it down or even say, well, I'm too much. Everyone else seems fine. This is just a me issue. But then they don't allow the truth to kind of come out a bit more. So there's a benefit with starting to really know what's my stuff. Who am I? How do I ask for support? And boundaries and communicating some of those things before I get in a community setting, though people rarely do. And then many community settings, the integration is an add-on feature. And I will continue to promote and encourage more retreats to include more of the integration as a part of it, because for people to truly get the result requires some rivers to the riverbanks for it to have flow. Otherwise, they're all wet and it's a nice big puddle, but it's not going anywhere. Feels good till it gets too hot outside, and then it's just a festering pool of mosquitoes. But you get what I'm saying, Kristin.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think there are parts of us that are learning to still sit with ourselves in stillness. It's something that we have a really tough time in doing, and I don't think that stillness necessarily has to be alone, but when we look at like the neurochemistry of the body and like even the vagus nerve, which we all talk about so much, it's like 80% of those nerves are afferent. They are going from the body to the brain. And so how do we really sit and feel with ourselves? And I think there's a big piece of community in general. That's like, I was talking on a podcast earlier today, and I was speaking about how, one of the best biohacks is speaking your truth. Because when you say something out loud that you either learned in ceremony, you learned in a peak experience, or you learned from something that's happened to you, it's sort of reaffirming as you say it out loud to other people that you're going to begin to navigate it potentially, right? Sometimes we say the things and then we're like shy and we run away, but mostly we're going to navigate it. And I think that there's something really, especially as it is your truth, it is something that really can land with community. And then also I've really learned over the last few years that even if it's a bit scary to share where you're at with a community, there are going to be other people that are like relieved that you are sharing because they are in a similar boat and they haven't been talking about it. And so that then blends into the integration process where you start to feel camaraderie with other people. Like, I have a broken heart too, or I never talked to my mother either after 3, or like some things come up, whatever it might be. And then there's more connection and we feel less alone, which is like, I think the ultimate point here.
That part, when you were talking about like speaking your truth, for me, everything that I do, is it giving me life force energy or taking it away? Right. And so I look at it like apps on a phone. The more you don't say, the more you withhold. It's like all these apps are open on your internal device. And so it's draining out your battery. You don't even know it. And so you can sit and work on your mitochondrial health. You can sit and work on, all these other aspects for longevity. But if you are withholding the sheer amount of energy to withhold, to not want to rock the boat, to not want to get ostracized from your community, requires so much energy that then biohacking only buys you more time, but not vitality. And so the opportunity we have is, that's why it's biohacking. It hacks to gain access. But then how do we biointegrate? How do we work with our cells? How do we work with our system? Why do I get an upset stomach when my kids aren't home on time? Because I'm digesting worry. I'm thinking about the worst case scenario. So I'm over digesting a thought. Or if someone's having IBS, instead of us saying, oh, well, it's just what they're eating, well, what are they upset about? Right? It's an upset stomach. It is angry. So, it's like, what are you digesting that could be making you angry? And the more that in the Condor approach, we teach body mapping, like Kristin mentioned, because your body is speaking a unique language. It's not happenstance, it's consequence, cone, sequence, with sequence. When this happens, the body does this because it's trying. Its first goal is to keep you alive. But once you get beyond survival, you have the privilege of longevity, vitality, excitement, ease. And for us, health runs on a continuum from ease to disease. So there's not healthy and diseasey. It's ease and disease. Every choice, everything you eat, every person you interact with, the chemicals in your home or the deficit of them is going to slide that dial. So allostatic load, we want to be able to hold more so that we can hold grief and joy, so that we can hold some gluten and some gluten-free, right? This is all increased capacity. But a lot of the healing space is catering and almost atrophying and not helping people to increase their capacity. And so it's almost making it where people are weakening emotionally in many ways because they can just avoid it. They can say, I'm triggered. They can just leave the room. And you have to kind of bow to that. And for me, that when we're talking about in the health optimization space, it's people that you have to increase your capacity because I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but I don't see the utopian future anytime soon. And there's still a lot of loss and a lot of sadness. And, especially here in Austin. And if we allow grief to cripple us, then nothing changes. So it starts with the self, but it's in all ways. Can we carry grief and enjoyment, pleasure and pain without shutting down? And that's what I think cold exposure can help train us, especially with intention, especially when someone starts to translate their body's cues. It helps with their kids. It helps with their family because then you can read people beyond what they're saying.
Yeah. And that's such a beautiful piece. I've heard recently said that really all of our work has to do with just learning to love ourselves and love what is. And from that, everything else can grow and continue. And what I've seen or what I've noticed in the world is that we have so much divisiveness right now about so many topics. And I even see it in the cold water communities, like people fighting over how cold and how long should and it's like, look, we're all here working for the same thing. So this is a really rich conversation. And I know I could just spend hours and I'm looking forward to spending hours. So I want to say that I actually have, I have experienced Kristin's program. The Sherpa Breath Cold is a 2-day workshop, and I'm actually enrolled. I've already signed up for the Condor Approach that's coming up. It's going to be held near Austin in September, and so I would love to have Kristin and Kole just have you if people want to get in touch with you, if they want to work with you, how do they find you? How do they reach out to you? What are the next steps?
Kristin Weitzel official, the lamest Instagram handle when you have to put official at the end of your name because someone else got it first. I answer my own DMs. She's a great pharmacist in Florida, so what can't knock her. The SherpaBreathCold.com is the website. Wellpower is my podcast. A lot of free information, research, and things there. And I work in the breath and cold space, sports performance, and all of that. And I would suggest and also say that anyone who's considering joining you in September, it's an unforgettable experience. Shaped so much what I've done as a coach, working with Tom and Kole. They've become dear, sweet friends. We've collaborated so much, and it puts you in a position where it's like to lead the pack because there's so many styles of coaches in the world, and there's such a deep reverence for understanding integration and how to work with other human bodies across the board, whether it's psychedelic landscape or not. And that's why I showed up to them, and I learned monumentally. So I wanted to just share a little of like my testimonial and how much it shaped me, and anyone who's thinking about getting involved, it's like, it's the last one, people, so get on it. Thank you for having me, John.
Yeah, thank you, Kristin, for sharing all of that. And I do also want to say this too. If somebody is listening to this and you are a coach or a facilitator of group type experiences, the Condor Approach is absolutely going to be a fit. And if you are just somebody who is a community builder, if you're a parent, if you run a business, this technology is something that's going to help make you way more effective too. And the people that are in your communities and in your businesses and in your sphere, this is something that you could bring into pretty much anything you're doing, right? It's not just about psychedelics. So, so I do want to preface, or I do want to make sure that that's really clear. Nicole, how can people reach out to you if they want to find out about this upcoming program? What's
I'm
next
like,
for them?
first of all, I just need to take the last like 2 minutes, clip it, and put it at the front of anything I ever do. I'm like, why am I trying so hard? It just like got summarized so beautifully. Um, yeah, so the as Kristin said, this September is the last live one. We've been doing it for 4.5 years, and I am feeling the call to become a mother and enter that path, which means I can't care for this baby and the other, and I want to have space and intention for that. So the information will keep available, but it's going to digital spaces. And when it comes to studying the nervous system, to only learn something and not be in practice of it is not the same thing. And to actually come work with people to view the tools in action is all of the difference. And there's lots of great information out there, but I, to the bottom of my soul and everywhere in between, believe that this work must be practiced in person and really witnessed in person and to be of service to people. I work with a very diverse BIPOC, queer, different religions, different age demographics of people. And when you get all those people into a room, you learn more about yourself, your bias, who you are, who you want to be, than you ever will in a room of people like you. There's a place for rooms of people like you. And then again, when you increase your capacities, it is required to be in rooms not like you to build your body's physical somatic tolerance to different. And so I'm thrilled that you're coming. I'm sure we'll have Kristin there as long as she's not jet setting and speaking and doing some other magical, amazing things. And it really is an opportunity to one, connect in a room of leaders, even if, like you said, people are leading in their own home or they're what I call a default coach where people go to them for advice, that you're still going to fit in the room. And some people just want the structure, they want to see how it's delivered. And we changed it this time where when someone registers, they get the full video library. So it's not a course, it's a video library. The more familiar you are before you come, the deeper we can go while we're there. And for anyone in your community, I want to offer $150 off for them to come. So I was like, oh, I'm going to remember. Oh, stay cold. No, ice cold. Hold on, let me check. Ice cold. The coupon code is ice cold. It gives $150 off for anyone that attends. And it's a beautiful experience of connecting up with other people in the room that are doing maybe what you want to do or what you're already doing. And we're big cultivators of the community there, of really connecting everybody. So I would love for anyone to come. You're muted.
I am nothing if not consistent. So yeah, so Kole, Kristin, I just want to say thank you both so much for having this conversation, and for anyone who is feeling inspired to learn more or do more, please do check it out. And if anybody has questions, please post those wherever this video shows up. Post the questions. I'm going to be monitoring those, and I will be sure that any questions get answered for you. And I'm just really thrilled and delighted that we get to take this work into the world. And I'm really grateful that y'all jumped on this conversation with me. I'm looking forward to September.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you both. And happy cold plunging, happy integrations. We'll be in touch soon.
Bye.